So you've got a destination in mind and you've collected a ton of points from your credit cards. But should you actually use them? How do you decide whether to book your travels with points or cash? This is something I personally go through a lot, so in this video we'll go over every single factor you need to consider when deciding between points or cash, along with real examples where I went through exactly those decisions for my flights and hotels. We'll also cover several lesser known options you've probably never heard of that could be an even better option. So when it comes to points, the first thing you need to decide is what's the value you're getting for each of your points comparing to some benchmark, something we typically refer to as cents per point or cents per mile. And when purchasing travel, you'll usually encounter one of these three common methods. Taking the real example from a vacation booking flights from Vancouver to Osaka, the retail price was $2,461, the price you would be paying if you were to buy this outright. But let's say we have some Chase points lying around. How do you know if you should be using those Chase points instead of cash? Well, first, Chase points can be simply redeemed for cash back at a 1 cent per point rate, giving you that 1 cent per point baseline value. But they do have bonuses when it comes to the second method, which is redeeming these points through their portal, depending on which of the cards you have. Because you see, with the Sapphire Preferred or Sapphire Reserve card, you'll get a bonus of 25 or 50% in value for your points when used in this way. Meaning when redeemed in this way, you'll need 196,880 points at 1.25 cents per point, or 164,067 points at 1.5 cents per point. From there, you want to check if these rates are above or below the benchmark value. And for starters, a good resource are those points valuation lists that some of these popular blogs put together after considering a lot of different data points, like the Points Guide pinning Chase points at 2.05 cents per point, or the Prince of Travel pinning them at 1.7 cents per point. And since the 1.25 and 1.5 cents per point value we get from redeeming our points through the portal is lower than the benchmark values, in my opinion, it's not the best use of your Chase points. That said, Chase points are pretty much everyone's favorite points currency, not only because of its flexibility, but the number of great partners you can actually transfer points to. And that's method number 3, using transfer partners letting you convert your Chase points at favorable rates to these other programs. For example, for my Vancouver to Osaka flight, I used 55,000 Aeroplan points plus about $30 in fees to book that flight, given it falls under this distance bucket of the Aeroplan award chart. To calculate the value per point, take the dollar value we get, subtract the taxes and fees, and divide by the number of points we used. In this case, about $2,461 minus the fees, which is about $39, divided by 55,000 points, giving us a value of 4.4 cents per point. Comparing to the Points Guide's valuation of Aeroplan points at 1.5 cents per point, or Prince of Travel valuing them at 1.6 cents per point, it's clear 4.4 cents per point makes for an excellent redemption, and exactly what I did when finding these business class flights for 4 people. But there is a caveat here. In fact, if you're only sticking to these 3 methods, then you're probably leaving a lot of value on the table that could really impact how much you're actually spending on your travels. First up, how are we getting the points in the first place? And I'm not talking about Chase, Capital One, or American Express points, which you have a ton of different cards you can earn points on. But how about Aeroplan points, for example? We used 1.5 cents per point earlier when talking about Aeroplan points, but that's just an estimate. The actual value can vary wildly depending on how you're getting these Aeroplan points. For example, if you're transferring your Chase points to Aeroplan, you might be valuing them at 2 cents per point instead, given you're transferring from a more flexible currency to a single program. However, transfer bonuses can really change this dynamic. Sometimes Chase offers a 20% bonus when transferring those points to Aeroplan, meaning for every 1 Chase point, you'll get 1.2 Aeroplan points, increasing the value of your points throughout this period. That said, it's typically not a great idea to transfer points without any immediate use in mind, because doing so can really limit your options and potentially lower the value of your points as you've locked into a more specific program. Points can also devalue over time, as has happened to a lot of currencies over the last few years. So unless you absolutely know what you're doing or you have a very specific redemption in in mind, I would keep your points in these flexible currencies instead. And then of course there are dedicated ways to earn a lot of points within these different programs. For example, the Chase Aeroplan card currently has a welcome bonus of 70,000 points after spending 3K in the first 3 months, more than enough for that Vancouver to Osaka business class seat. Now there is another way to use points for travel, even if you have none to begin with. For example, let's say you need those 55,000 points to book that Vancouver to Osaka flight with a retail value of $2,461. But what if you can just pay $700 instead? Well, you can do exactly that with no prior requirements at all by purchasing points. Almost every month, Aeroplan has bonuses when purchasing points, with recent promotions offering a 100% bonus, meaning each point would only cost you 1.28 cents per point. And if we remind ourselves at the value of Aeroplan points at 1.5 cents per point, buying is a pretty good deal, to the point where I may consider buying these points instead of transferring my Chase points over, which I value at that higher 2 cents per point. And so if we purchase points to get those 55,000 points, we can get this one-way business class flight for just over $700. If this flight is available, there really is no downside for buying these points and booking that way instead. In fact, booking with points allows for more flexibility, where you can cancel or change this flight for as little as $100 or $150 Canadian, which is typically not possible when you're paying for these flights with cash directly. These bonuses aren't just isolated to Aeroplan either. Tons of different programs have these exact bonuses, including popular ones like World of Hyatt, Virgin, Flying Blue, and even Marriott. But speaking of Marriott, all of the examples we've gone through so far is considering points versus cash when it comes to flights, even though the same decisions and options are available when talking about hotels. Last year when I was traveling to Japan, I actually made a table comparing exactly this, looking at the value I'd get for each of my points at different hotels around Tokyo. I focus on Marriott, where I have gold status with my Amex Platinum card, or could get platinum status if I got the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant card, Hyatt, which usually has some good redemptions, and then Hilton, where I have gold status again from my Amex Platinum card, or where I can get the Hilton Aspire for that top tier diamond status. In column G, I have the total cost, which I believe was about 5 days, as well as the total points needed for that entire stay, along with their per night values. And then in column I have the value I'm getting for each of my points, pretty much column G divided by column E, compared to the benchmark value I listed in the column J. Now you can just eyeball it, but I'm a visual learner, so it helps me to color code the outsized value I'm getting for each of these redemptions. And by outsized value, I mean how much above the benchmark I'm getting. From this analysis, there were a couple clear winners here, like the Park Hyatt, the Grand Hyatt, or the AC Hotel Tokyo Ginza. Given I had accumulated a lot of Marriott points from my past cards or work trips, it was the clear choice here, especially since I wouldn't need to transfer over Chase points in order to book the Hyatt places. And so that's exactly what I did, redeeming 159,000 Marriott points for a value of $2,200 over that stay, giving me 1.39 cents per point, way above the benchmark of 0.8 cents per point. Today, there are regularly bonuses when purchasing points, including Marriott points as low as 0.89 cents per point, which is close to the benchmark value already and is not even the best promotion. Now, although pretty much all of these calculations are the same whether you're booking flights or hotels, the one caveat here is that if you're using points for hotels, sometimes you don't even have to pay fees in the case of Marriott. On top of that, you can take advantage of free nights like Hilton's 5th night free or Marriott stay 5 nights pay 4, which is what made my points go so far in my redemption. But this Marriott redemption touches an important point that we sometimes overlook when being so heads down on these redemptions. And that's, even though these redemptions make sense, would you have another use of these points for better value in the near future? And I say in near future because this balancing act is an art, not a science. You don't always want to be saving your points because they can be prone to devaluation, but you may also not want to burn your points at every chance you get. With my Marriott redemption, that was the perfect choice because not only was it the best value redemption, it was also using Marriott points I had laying around for years that I haven't touched, and that had been devalued over and over throughout the years. So it was such perfect timing where I could finally put those points to good use. Now that's a lot of different different ways to use points, from transferring them and buying them to bonuses and promotions that make them even more worthwhile. However, that does not mean cash is trash. In fact, paying with cash could also have its own benefits too, many of which you may overlook because it's not as simple as it seems. First off, cash is not literally paying in a stack of bills. It's usually paying with credit cards. And when it comes to credit card spend, you have these solid multipliers that can earn you a lot of points. Compared to when you use points to redeem for travel, you won't earn more points, but if you're paying with cash, you will. For example, if you're paying for a $1,000 ticket with your Capital One Venture X card, because of its 2 times miles across all categories, you're earning 2,000 miles. With Capital One miles, at least in my benchmark, being valued at 2 cents per mile, that's like getting $40 back in value. Now, 2 times is the baseline you should aim for, but these multipliers go way higher. For instance, you can earn 3 times points on all dining purchases with your Sapphire Preferred, or even higher multipliers this quarter, like 5 times at Amazon, 7 times on dining, and 9 times for hotels booked through their portal. That means if you're spending $1,000 at restaurants this quarter and paying with the Chase Freedom Flex card, you'll earn 7,000 points. And with Chase points being worth around 2 cents per point, that's like getting $140 back in value, or 14% back. And that's one area people usually miss when calculating points versus cash. And that's paying with cash usually means you'll earn points. And that slightly bumps up the value when going through that method. On top of that, usually when you're using points to redeem for travel, you won't earn your way towards hotel or flight status requirement. And so if you're trying to reach certain levels there, you probably want to consider paying with cash instead. Now, hopefully by now you have most of the tools needed to calculate whether it's worth it to use points or stick with cash, while considering all the little things like the different points ecosystems, buying points, or earning value if you're paying cash instead. But if that wasn't complicated enough, there's a whole set of other options you need to consider to get the full picture, and can really sway your decisions one way or the other. And one of these big factors is if you have any credits on any credit cards. For example, if you have the Chase Sapphire Preferred or the Citi Strata Premier card, well then you have $50 and $100 to use towards hotel purchases through the respective portals. Got the Capital One Venture X? Well, you have the yearly $300 travel credit to use through their portal. From my experience, because I usually try and find good business class redemptions for my international flights, I usually save these credits for more short haul flights, such as my upcoming flight between Osaka and Seoul, where that $300 credit just perfectly covered 2 flights. Maybe you have the American Express Platinum card. Well, then you have that $200 hotel credit to use on FHR or Hotel Collection properties. That was a choice I was strongly considering, staying at the Conrad Seoul, which offers perks such as a free night, as well as the other FHR benefits like early check-in, room upgrades, breakfast for 2, an experience credit, and complimentary Wi-Fi with late checkout. Even though the price per night for these could be a bit higher than on other sites, with these special offers and these perks, it could tip the scale over and make this method more worth it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, even with these FHR perks and benefits, there's another thing I needed to consider which makes it an even better value, and that's with corporate rates. Usually if you work for a larger company, they may have rates for you to use on your personal travel that can get discounts on properties in different cities, especially ones that they may have a presence in. And in my case, that meant getting a 30 to 40% discount on the nightly rate at the Park Hyatt Seoul, which is what we did instead. On top of that, Hyatt has a special program called the Guest of Honors, where you can give this award to others and apply it to their stay, where they will pretty much be treated like globalist status, which is what we'll be doing for our upcoming stay, which is why it tipped the decision over to that direction. And so when you're calculating points versus cash, you want to be sure to include all of these other benefits, like a 3rd free night, the $100 in experience credit, around $50 per day for the daily breakfast, and however much you value those room upgrades, all of which can really tip the scales. But having status, or in this case friends with status, is not the only way to get all of these benefits, because another option are travel advisors. No, not the ones at the mall where you just tell them what you want and they'll book it for you. These travel advisors actually partner with all of these hotel chains to give you those elevated perks for not too much more in pricing. And I say not too much more because because this pricing is usually not the lowest saver or non-refundable rate, and actually the flexible rate instead. However, again, it could be worth it if you factor in the perks you're actually getting. For example, this company partners with a lot of different hotel chains, including Hyatt Privé, which offers a ton of promotions, including a 4th night free at the Park Hyatt Seoul, which I'll be staying at, as well as similar perks to FHR like getting property credit, daily breakfast, better check-in and out times, and free Wi-Fi, in addition to a complimentary room upgrade that's confirmed within 24 hours of booking, which itself could be a major factor knowing if you're going to get an upgrade for your stay or not. I personally haven't gone through this channel, but there's a few companies that do this, like this Live Lux Travel Co. and even Prince of Travel themselves, who also partner with a bunch of different hotel chains. Now, no matter what you choose, points or cash, credit cards will play a major role, whether it be giving you those injections of points, credits to use, or making sure you're earning tons of value back if you're paying with cash. You'll just want to make sure you're using the right cards for your lifestyle. So go on and check out this video for exactly how to set up that perfect strategy.